So, I'm Lady Teddy. I'm going to be starting. This is the first time I'm doing this, so I don't know how it's going to work out, but I'm going to be reading out loud a choose your own adventure story called Magium, which is really, really cool, and I recommend everyone download it for themselves because there's lots of really cool ways that you can go through it. I'm going to try and do multiple different types of run-throughs. And it's not completed either, it's still coming out. It's on the third book out of 5, not including spin-offs, as far as I know. I'm told that my voice is very soothing, so I'm hoping that, yeah, we'll see how this goes. When I was trying to set this up, it was a little glitchy, so we shall see if this works out, and if it doesn't, then it's okay. Man, it's really cold in here all of a sudden. I'm using BlueStacks, which does not seem to like OBS all that much. Either that or OBS does not seem to like it. Oh yay! That worked. Yeah, that actually worked fairly well. Okay. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. I feel like it's a little awkward looking. Okay, that's not gonna let me adjust it. But that's okay. So this is chapter 1 of Magium. Okay, I guess, actually let me drink some water. I feel like I should do tongue twisters or something. So for the first run through, I'm probably going to do it. I will be checking the chat periodically, so if anyone wants to add anything, just let me know. Or if they have any suggestions for the different decisions that I should make, let me know. I'm probably going to be doing this, the first run through, the way that I did it on my personal run through. And then, yeah, I guess we'll go from there. Okay. Wait, shit, it went away. Why? Why are you going away? But now you guys aren't able to see it. Why? Gosh dang it, why is it so glitchy? Let's see, opening it again for the second time. Now I'm getting tired. Okay, I'm gonna see if it loads. If not, I can always try deleting the layer element. Oh, the yay. Okay. What? Okay. Okay. Alright. So, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. Unique, New York, unique, New York, unique, New York, unique, New York, unique, unique, New York. A tutor who tutored the flute tried to tutor two tutors to toot, said the toot to the tutor, is it tougher to toot or to tutor two tutors to toot? Okay. They say there is a very fine line between bravery and stupidity. As I stand here in the middle of this forest, gazing at all of the explosions far in the distance, I realize I may as well have crossed that line to a point of no return. My name is Barry. I'm 28 years old and could quite accurately be described as your everyday ordinary guy. I have no talents, no particular skills, and no academic background. The only thing that defines me is my lifelong obsession to become a mage. It is what I've wished for ever since I was 5 years old. It has been my driving passion throughout my life, as I've constantly amassed knowledge about mages and traveled the world in my hopes of finding a way to make my dream come true. After endless years of searching through dusty tomes and weathered parchments, I have finally found a way to do it. The catch? I need to first win a tournament against the most powerful mages in the world. Sounds crazy. That's probably because it is. But it is far too late to go back now. The only way that's left for me is forward. As I stand here knowing it's no longer possible to return to my normal life, I can't help but feel quite excited, calm, or afraid. I'm gonna go with excited. Excited about this whole thing. Maybe I really am completely out of my mind. I would have expected to feel at least a little bit scared about all of this, but instead of that, I get this constant tingling sensation that won't go away. The feeling that I am closer to my dream than ever before in my life. All of the terrible dangers that await me seem distant to me. And all I can really think about is think about now is that at the end of this tournament, when I win this, I will finally become a mage. There's an explosion, maybe a few hundred feet from my location. The fights have already begun, and one of them is much closer to me than I would have hoped. There's no way I can get in a fight with any of the mages at this point. I need to avoid combat for as long as possible if I am to survive until the end. I will head in the opposite direction from where I've heard the explosion. As I am heading towards the end of the forest, I start hearing voices. There are two mages talking in a clearing a few feet away from me. I hide between a tree and take a quick glance towards the clearing. It seems the two mages have just finished fighting. One of them has the appearance of an ordinary thug. He's wearing a simple stained white shirt, leather pants, and a belt full of throwing knives. His untrimmed black beard hides a wicked smile. Just by seeing the confidence in his eyes, I can clearly tell he is the victor of the skirmish. The other mage is wearing heavy armor, but his shield lies on the ground beside him, and he is barely holding his sword anymore. Taking a closer look at the mage in armor, I notice his head is bald, his skin is dark, and he is likely in his mid-40s, and he has a scar on his forehead shaped like an X. I've read of a mage matching this exact description who went by the name of Darren, and he was quite legendary. But would he lose so easily to some common thug? The mage in his white shirt answers my question as he addresses the one in armor, while casually playing with one of his knives. The legendary mage Darren, the savior of the eastern continent, the healer in armor. They say you've traveled the world, saving countless villages from destruction. That you've once fought 10 rock golems by yourself, only to defend a small child. I guess this really goes to show you should never really trust legends. I always knew all of those tales about mages as strong as giants were just codswallop. Hell, if all of those legendary mages that joined this tournament are as weak as you, I'm going to win this by sundown. He starts laughing, but he stops suddenly. Wait, who's there? He said as he turns towards me. I quickly pull my head back behind the tree and press my back against it, trying to breathe as silently as possible. I know you're there, coward. Show yourself, or I'll have one of my knives find you. Stay silent? Show myself? I see no reason to show myself to you. Achievement unlocked. Who are you calling a coward? I breathe in deeply and try to appear as calm as possible. I step out of the forest and into the clearing, facing the mage with the knives directly. Who are you calling a coward? I ask him. The mage pauses for a bit as he measures me up and down. A Stillwater, eh? He says finally. He tried hard to keep his composure when asking his question, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. He is afraid. His sudden change of attitude towards me is not completely unexpected. The existence of Stillwaters is one of the main reasons I've dared to dream that I might have a chance to win this tournament. Stillwaters are a rare breed of mages that are known to be incredibly powerful. One of them is said to have destroyed an entire city in an instant, some 20 years ago, with only a flick of his fingers. The city of Ulmnar was said to have been one of the greatest cities on this continent, but it was wiped off the map just like that, in a single second. Such is the power of these Stillwaters. But what is even more interesting about these Stillwaters is that you can't differentiate them from normal humans. Normally you can sense the magic flowing from every being. You don't need to be a mage to do it. By sensing their magical aura, you can tell how strong the mages are before engaging them in a fight. Stillwaters, however, have the same aura as normal humans. And if you were to run into someone that seemed to have almost no magic in the middle of what is essentially the greatest mage tournament in all of history, what would you be more inclined to believe? That an average human was somehow suicidal enough to join the tournament only to get massacred? Or you are facing one of the strongest and rarest kinds of mages that exist in the world. You don't scare me, Stillwater. I'm going to fill you with holes and you'll end up begging me for mercy. I bet your legends are no more true than they were for this sad excuse for a mage standing next to me. Give him 10. Give him until the count of 10 to retreat, or imply that I am the one who destroyed Olmnar. That's funny, I tell him. That's almost the same thing the people of Olmnar told me before I burned their city to the ground. The mage was about to go for his knives, but now he stopped. He is looking at me quite intently without averting his eyes for even a second. You're bluffing, the mage says. I guess there's only one way to find out then, I tell him, as I feel my heart pounding in my chest. The few seconds of silence that followed felt like the longest seconds of my life. After a long pause, the mage says finally, You're in luck, Stillwater. I'm feeling merciful today. I'm going to be out of your hair just as soon as I finish this guy here. You do that and you'll regret it, I say without thinking. My last sentence seems to have taken him aback. What, are you kidding me? You're going to defend this lowlife? If I have to. Do I have to? The mage's face contorts into a scowl, but he says nothing. He doesn't seem to want to push his luck any further. He reluctantly puts his daggers back into his belt and then he spits on the ground next to Darren. I'll remember this, Stillwater. Don't think I won't. I never forget a face. You'll rue the day you messed with Cutthroat Dave. And the same goes for you, Healer in Armor. I'll be seeing the both of you again soon. After he finishes his speech, he turns away in disgust as he heads into the woods on the opposite side of the clearing. Once I can no longer see the mage, I let out a big sigh. That was close. That was really close. I can still feel my heart beating rapidly in my chest. You do that and you'll regret it? What was I even thinking? Was I trying to get myself killed? This is a life and death tournament, Barry. There is not the time for you to start playing hero. Stop. As I try to calm myself down, the mage in the armor sheathes his sword, picks up his shield from the ground, and starts walking towards me. You had no obligation to save me, he says, but you did so anyways, at the risk of your own life. I cannot let such selfishness go unrewarded. I, Darren, vow this day that I will offer you my protection from this moment until the end of this tournament. Tell me, brave soul, what is your name? His speech took me by surprise. It's Barry. My name is Barry. Wait, your name is Barry? He tries to contain his laughter but fails miserably. He was trying to sound solemn and dignified a few seconds ago, but it seems it didn't really take him long to drop his act. Now that's the weirdest name for a mage I've ever heard in my life, especially for a Stillwater. Do you have something you want to tell me, Barry? Tell him I'm actually an ordinary human? Or tell him that my parents had a weird sense of humor? I'm not a Stillwater, Darren. That thug just assumed I was, and I took advantage of the situation. But you're not one of the locals either. Otherwise, that spell of theirs would have alerted us the moment we sensed your presence. He's talking about the spell that the organizers of the tournament cast on each of the participants before teleporting us here. We aren't allowed to hurt the humans that live on this continent, so their spell warns us when one of them is near. If what they said can be believed, their spell is supposed to stop us even before we try hurting any of the locals. If it's accidental, then it simply stops us before doing it. If it's intentional, it eliminates us from the tournament and sends us back. Their spell is also supposed to act as a means of communication with the organizers. They said they'll transmit the objectives to each of us individually. It's funny. All of those careful preparations on their side, and they never even bothered to check if I was a mage or not. Hell, what am I saying? They probably didn't even care. So you must be a participant then, Darren continues. What reason would you have to participate in a tournament against the most powerful mages in the world? I am after the same thing as every other participant in this tournament, Darren, but I'm not sure how wise it would be to tell you this. I'm after the prize that is being offered to the winner, the Magium. No one knows exactly what it looks like or what it's made of, but everyone knows the fact that it is the source of all magic in the world, that it can only be found on the continent of Varathia. All mages seek it, they crave it. They are certain that if they have access to it, they can increase their powers 100-fold and become living legends. And although it is a common misconception that the Magium is only useful for learned mages, my studies have led me to believe that the Magium is so extraordinary that it can even turn a normal human into a mage. I have searched very long for a way to get into Varathia, but the only way one can travel to their continent is by receiving a direct invitation. Very few of those are sent yearly, and the people being teleported there are being held under direct supervision for the duration of their stay, and return with no information regarding the coordinates of the place. But when almost all hope seemed lost, the announcement came. A worldwide announcement by the kings of Varathia that they were organizing a tournament where every single mage in the world was invited, and the winner would be granted access to the Magium. I knew then that there would never be another chance like this. Why did you join this tournament, Barry? Darren asks me again. Tell him the truth. Tell him I was forced into it. Tell him I'm looking for a cure for my sick sister. Achievement unlocked. Honesty is the best policy. I'm after the same thing as you, Darren, I tell him. I'm after the Magium. It's been my dream ever since I was little to become a mage, and the Magium can grant me that wish. Come on, Barry, you're gonna have to make up a better lie than that if you want me to believe you. He stops and looks me straight in the eye. By the gods, you are being serious. Barry, I commend your bravery and determination, but you do realize that you can't win this entire tournament just by bluffing, don't you? Of course I know that. That's not the only ace I have up my sleeve. But what about you? They say you are one of the strongest mages in the world, so how does one as strong as you get bested so easily by someone named Cutthroat Dave? Oh, that. He is sounding embarrassed. You see, Barry, I may be powerful, but that doesn't mean I don't have weaknesses. It turns out one of those weaknesses is that I never really managed to master the shield spell properly. The shield spell, the one that casts an invisible protective layer around yourself? But isn't that one of the first spells any mage learns? It is, but it's not like I can't cast it at all. I can defend from magic just fine. It's normal weapons that I have a problem with. That is why I wear armor. This is why I use a sword and shield. I first started using them because I couldn't use the shield spell properly, but soon I started tailoring my magic around them, and my very fighting style. I found a master that would teach me to fight with weapons, and I used my magic to enchant them. Then, after every fight, I just use white magic to heal my wounds. Like so. He demonstrates it by raising his hands in the air and making a white light appear all around him. As the light shines, his wounds start closing, and the blood fades away. The cutthroat's knives had a life of their own, and there were many of them attacking me simultaneously. If I had a proper shield spell to defend against them, defeating him would have been child's play, but defending against all of those knives with a shield and sword alone would have been impossible regardless of my combat skill. All armors have their weaknesses. All he had to do was go for the armor's joints repeatedly until he wore me out. Why are you telling me all of this? Shouldn't you at least be a bit worried about revealing your greatest weakness to someone you just met? Hey, you just saved my life. You can't be that bad, right? Pardon me for interrupting. I hear a woman's voice from behind the trees. But would you by chance be Darren, the legendary savior of the Eastern continent? Next chapter. Checkpoint reached. Game saved. Both Darren and I turn around at the same time. We see a slim, tall figure standing behind us with long, black hair, fair skin, and a very serious look on her face. She is wearing leather pants, a long-sleeved white blouse, and a green hooded cloak. She appears to be somewhere in her early 20s, but that's not all there is to this woman. I can also sense a strong magical aura all around her. An aura that couldn't possibly be coming from a regular human. Could she be a banshee? My heart starts beating rapidly again. That night from 15 years ago is coming back to me. I can see it vividly, and I can still hear her laughter. That sinister, high-pitched laughter. Will it never stop haunting me? I breathe in deeply and try to calm down. This woman can't be a banshee. The feeling I'm getting now is too different from the one I got back then. Does that mean she's a mage? No, that would be impossible. And yet... Barry, Darren whispers, don't be afraid. I know white magic. I can purify her. I realize that Darren must have also sensed the magic coming from the woman and concluded that she's been possessed by a banshee. Banshees are parasitic spirits that need to inhabit bodies in order to survive. They usually spend a few weeks inside a body in a dormant state before taking over. During this phase, the host may develop magical powers. Once a banshee is in full control of the body, they say she is awakened. The only way that you can save the original host once she's been possessed by a banshee is to use white magic to purify her before the banshee has fully awakened. Which basically means killing the banshee without harming the host. However, the purification technique operates on the assumption that a woman cannot have magical powers on her own. They call it purification, but all the technique does, in fact, is to completely eradicate the aura that gives off the strong magical vibe, with the purpose of also eliminating the banshee along with it. On the other hand, if the aura does not, in fact, belong to a banshee, but the woman herself, the purification would be nothing short of a death sentence. No, wait, listen to me, I blurt out. This woman isn't a banshee. So what? You're suggesting that she's a mage then? Barry, woman can't be mages. There hasn't been a single recorded case of a woman mage in all our world's history. Every time a woman's developed magical powers, it's been because of a banshee. Every single time. Don't you think I know that? But this one is different. If you try to purify her, you may well end up killing her. How can you be so sure? Because I've met a banshee before, up close. Have you met a banshee before, Darren? No, he admits. You just said you trusted me enough to tell me your greatest weakness. I'm asking you to trust me on this too. Can you trust me on this, Darren? Darren gives me one long look, and then he sighs deeply. All right, we'll do it your way, but I'm keeping an eye on her. I swear, Barry, if it turns out you're only saying this because of her looks, I'm going to... Would you guys mind telling me what you've been whispering about for the past minute? The woman asks us. Her looks, deciding which one would make a pass at her, deciding which one should make a pass at her, just finishing our discussion from earlier, or discussing whether she is a banshee or not. We are discussing whether you are a banshee or not, I tell her. Oh, she says. She appears shaken by my comment. Well, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have bothered you then, she continues. I'll be on my way. As she turns to leave, Darren calls after her. Wait, you didn't let him finish. We've already concluded that you are not a banshee. You can stay. She turns back towards us slowly. I can? She says, trying to keep her expression as blank as possible, but there is a slight trembling in her tone as she asks her question. Her eyes are a bit watery. It appears she's been holding back tears. Of course you can, Darren answers. Now, what was that you asked me in the beginning? The woman's expression is slowly returning to normal as she asks her initial question again. I was asking if you were Darren, the healer in armor. I am indeed, answers Darren. What business would you have with me? I require an escort. I'm not certain I can survive this tournament by myself, and I've heard of all your deeds of valor and all of your legends, so I thought that maybe... Say no more. I will grant you my protection for the duration of your quest. From what you say, I would surmise you're not actually trying to win the tournament. No, I'm not. I am looking for a friend, and I have reasons to believe that she's somewhere on this continent, but I don't have any specific leads just yet. For now, I just need to stay alive. Then you can join us. We were just about to get out of here. We're way too out in the open right now. Us? You're planning to travel alongside this Stillwater? You can't trust him. Actually, he's not a Stillwater, he's just a normal human, Darren corrects her. Great. I'm wondering if he plans to blow my cover to every single person we meet from now on. Is that what he told you? The woman asks. And you believe him? He's just trying to get you to lower your guard. Ask her what she has against me. Ask her why the two of us should trust her. Ask her why she's so quick to trust Darren and not me. Why me? I ask her. Why can you trust Darren so easily but not me? Because his reputation precedes him. Few are those that haven't heard of his bravery and his outstanding morality. You, on the other hand, come from a race filled with mass murderers. Whoa, let's all calm down, says Darren. He turns to the woman. Listen, I understand your concern, but this man saved my life and I intend to repay my debt to him. If you're looking for an escort, then it's going to be the three of us traveling together. I'm not accepting any alternatives. The woman pauses to consider Darren's words. Very well, she says. If that's the way it has to be, then I am forced to comply. But know that I'll be constantly watching my back. I'm not as easily convinced as you, healer in armor. Great, Darren says. Now that we've got that settled, let's be off. Adventure awaits. Wait, I call out. You still didn't tell us your name. The woman looks towards me and gives me a pondering look. After careful consideration, she decides to answer. It's Kate. My name is Kate. With those last words, the three of us leave the clearing and headed to the forest in hopes of finding some place away from the ongoing battles that are being waged across the land. As we march through the forest, I hear a few loud beeps coming from my right pocket. Barry, what's that sound? Darren asks. I know that sound. Don't tell me you brought a fortune teller's trinket with you all the way here. Are you planning to tell our fortunes, Barry? A fortune teller's trinket. That's what most people call these devices nowadays. But very few people know what they really do and how they actually work. My research has led me to believe that these devices harness their energy from the magic all around them. The more energy they harness, the more effective they become. Since the mages are usually spread far apart from one another, they don't really have any reason to cast powerful spells. They don't really have any reason to cast powerful spells one after the other. The effects of such a device are mostly negligible. But imagine the amount of energy it could gather in a place filled with the most powerful mages in the world, who are constantly fighting each other. I pull the device out of my pocket. It looks much like a toy with a few buttons and with a screen. As I press the buttons, different letters magically appear on the screen, forming words and showing me numbers. The device calls these stats. My stats consist mostly of various physical attributes such as strength, speed, reflexes, toughness, observation, and hearing. But there's also others like combat technique, ancient languages, and premonition. When the device harnesses enough energy, and it announces me by beeping, and then allows me to invest a limited number of points in my stats, at which moment all of my stats are at 0, which means that the device's energy was completely depleted when I bought it. I guess that I'll have to start leveling them from scratch. Investing my points in stats is supposed to actually enhance my real attributes as long as I keep the device close enough to me that it comes into contact with my magical aura. As I spend my time here, I'm expecting to hear these beeps more and more often. I'll have to think twice about the way I spend my points though, since I have no way of knowing when I'll get my next batch of points, and no way to change my mind after I've invested them. The maximum values that appear now for each stat are likely to increase as time passes. This device is mostly used by fortune tellers because of its premonition stat. It provides them with some very vague glimpses into the future that they are then free to interpret to their own liking. I wonder if the ancient languages stat actually means that I'll start being able to understand and speak ancient tongues. I heard that there are many such writings on this continent, and I heard some people here don't speak the common tongue. invest points now, invest points later by pressing the stats button on the top screen. Now I'm going to start saving my own manual saves from now on. I'll start, oh wait, hang on. Haha. I'll start on save slot 3 so that I can use these ones for more immediate ones. Save game, and I'm going to label it points 1. B1, book 1, chapter 2, or chapter 2, points 1. To make sure it goes to the right place, I'm going to load game, and there we go. Now the way I normally play these games is I don't invest points until it looks like I need it, because I more or less know what I need for the path that I want to take, because I've played this story before. I'm going to invest the points now. Since this is the first time you're entering the stat screen, here's a short introduction. This is where you can spend your available points by pressing any one of the stats from the stat screen. Upon each press, you will spend one of the available points in order to gain one level in that stat. Your number of available points is shown at the top of the stat screen. You can cancel or confirm your changes by using the button at the top of the screen. Every once in a while, the game will check to see if your stats are high enough to perform a certain action in a scene. If your stat level is not high enough, you will fail the check, which will be announced by a red message on top of your screen. A successful stat check will be shown in green. Here are 2 examples. Ancient languages check failed, level 3. Combat technique check successful, level 2. Continue to stats screen. From what I remember, it's going to be Ancient Languages 2 and Observation 1. Hello, Nick Birch. How are you doing today? Thank you for joining. Thank you for the first time chat. Oh, thank you for this. Thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate you. How are you doing tonight? Because I'm trying to do an ASMR thing right now. I'm glad that my sound alerts aren't working. But also, I don't know why my sound alerts aren't working. Okay. The stories that I'm reading right now? No, this is a story called Magium. It is a choose your own story book, so you can make choices and it will affect the outcome of the story. And I don't remember the name of the guy, but it's an app and you can download it on either iPhone or Android. And it's really good. It's free. I have a lot of respect for the author, and I made sure to get his permission before I started reading this. He writes the stories himself, And he also codes the app himself for both Android and iPhone, which is just mind-boggling since they both have different coding languages. So as I'm reading this, oh, I'm sorry. You mean the main character in this or the author? No, this is, the premise right now is he's this guy that's an ordinary guy who wants to be a mage, and he realizes that the only way he can become a mage, and he's obsessed, is to join this mage tournament with a prize called the Magium, which is the source of all magic and could potentially give him the ability to cast magic and be a mage. So he joined, which is basically a suicide mission because he's competing against the strongest mages in the world. Right now he is talking about something called a stat device that gathers magic from the air, and then he can add the stats to increase his own attributes. And that will affect the outcome of the game. Okay. Do you have any more questions? I really highly recommend you download it for yourself. I'm going to be doing multiple playthroughs to get all of the achievements and do an evil berry, good berry, smart berry, Hulk berry. Just try and get all of them. I've only done my own playthrough. No, thank you for interacting. That's what I want. Barry, don't you think there are more important things to do right now than playing with that toy? Darren asks me. This isn't a toy, I answer him as I put the device back into my pocket. And I think you should pay more attention to where you are going instead of lecturing me, because I see we just ran out of forest. Quiet, the two of you. We've got company, Kate says. She's right. All around us I see there are fallen trees everywhere in this area, and there are quite a few dead bodies lying around. It seems there's been a battle here, or maybe several. The victors were in the middle of looting the bodies when they noticed us. There's 3 of them in total. One of them is considerably well built for a mage. He has a very long black beard covering his face, and he seems to be in his mid-40s. He's wearing heavy armor and is holding a large battle axe. The other 2 are a bit skinnier and younger and are wearing chainmail vests instead, but they are holding no weapons. The bearded mage with the axe shouts to Darren. Quite the team you've assembled there, healer in armor, a healer, a banshee, and an ordinary human. It's like you're dying to lose this tournament. Kate was visibly affected by the banshee comment. Her eyes twitched and her look went subconsciously towards the ground. Mind your tongue, fool, I replied to him. Who are you calling an ordinary human? Have you not heard of Stillwaters? Ha! Stillwaters are legend and nothing more. I don't know what you were trying to achieve by joining this tournament, boy, but soon it won't matter anymore. Why? Darren asked the bearded mage. Why have you done this? He gestures towards the lifeless bodies lying all around us. Nobody told us we should start killing each other, Darren continues. They told us there are no rules until they give us our first objectives. We don't even know if there is going to be combat involved. Why did you kill all of these people? Stop. Because there are no rules, answers the mage with the battle axe. No rules means we could do whatever we want. And what we want is to eliminate as much of the competition as possible before the main event starts. He grins. My sons and I were a little worried at first. We were afraid we might not be ready for the big leagues, but here we are, the bearded mage exclaims as he raises his hands to take a vicious stance. But enough talk. We all know what's coming. Barry, get behind me, Darren shouts as he rushes in front of me. First rule of combat, says the bearded mage. Suddenly, one of the two younger mages that were standing next to the mage with the battle axe vanishes and appears right behind me with a dagger in his hand. Always kill the weakest enemies first, the bearded mage continues. The young mage slashes his dagger towards my neck, but Darren reacts just in time and uses his shield to take the blow. Ha! You left the woman undefended. Classic mistake, says the mage with the battle axe as his second son makes a dozen swords appear out of thin air, floating in front of him, and sends them all flying towards Kate. Just as the swords reach her, Kate's left arm gets covered in a large, thick block of ice, sculpted in the form of a shield. She puts it in front of her, and all of the swords get stuck into it. Left the woman undefended, Kate asks. So which is it then? Woman or banshee? She lowers her arm to reel her face as she looks straight at the mage with the black beard. Her eyes are brimming with fury. Make up your mind, she shouts. And the whole forest falls silent from the sound of her voice. The mage with the battle axe seems to have temporarily lost his cool, and is looking a bit terrified than he should be. Kate's killing intent is so strong that it almost seems palpable. I see backstabbers and sword throwers, she shouts, and you call yourselves mages? Come, I'll show you real magic. As she talks, the air all around us seems to be getting colder. So this is what it feels like to be in a mage tournament alongside the most powerful mages in the world. The bearded mage seems to have snapped out of it. Your parlor tricks won't save you a second time, wench. I don't care if you're a banshee or not. None of you are going to leave this place alive, he shouts as he rushes towards Darren with his battle axe ready to strike. As he approaches, I realize that if I don't do something quick, Darren will be forced to fight both the older and the younger mage by himself, while also defending me, and he won't have the luxury of using his healing spells since they require him to be calm and relaxed in order to cast them. Maybe there's something I could do to help? Hide behind Darren and let him handle them both. Draw the younger mage away from Darren and focus on avoiding his attacks. Fight the younger mage myself. Would anyone like to help me make a choice? I don't have any physical stats right now. Okay, I'm going to pick hide behind Darren and let him handle them both, because he could probably handle it. If I try to handle the younger mage myself, I might just get in Darren's way. I'll leave him to this and try to follow his lead as much as possible. Kate seems to have gotten the sword-throwing mage's undivided attention. He is constantly sending swords her way from every direction as she creates walls of ice to block his attacks. We're lucky. With Darren's weakness against weapons and my lack of magical talents, that mage would probably have been the hardest for us to fight. As the bearded mage reaches us, his battle axe clashes loudly with Darren's sword. I see you've enchanted your weapon well, healer, said the older mage, but how long can you last against a battle-hardened warrior such as myself? He roars and presses his battle axe hard against Darren's sword. The younger mage tries to have another go at me with his dagger, but Darren intercedes his strike with his shield. How long do you plan on defending this little whelp? You can't protect him and fight the both of us at the same time. Abandon the boy and maybe you'll stand a chance. Never, Darren shouts as he slashes towards the bearded mage and his blade meets the battle axe's steel yet again. In the meantime, the mage fighting Kate has managed to surround her with floating swords, aimed at her from every direction. He sends them all at her simultaneously in an attempt to overwhelm her defenses. She quickly surrounds herself with a sphere of very thick ice, and all of the swords once again stop into it. As she dismisses the sphere, all the hundreds of swords drop to the ground with a deafening clang. The mage with the dagger is very keen on landing a blow at me. Darren has managed to successfully block every one of his hits that were aimed at me, but he got himself hurt in the process more than once. Even with his full body armor equipped, I can tell he won't last much longer this way. Something needs to be done. Ask Kate for help, draw the younger mage away from Darren and focus on avoiding his attacks. Fight the younger mage myself. Since once again I don't have any physical stats, I'm going to make the cowardly one. Kate, help! I yell while Darren is still trying to keep the two attackers at bay. Kate does not show any signs of having heard me and continues to defend from the swords flying at her. Kate! I shout again. They're killing him. As I finish shouting, Kate briefly looks in my direction and extends her right arm towards the dagger wielding mage with her palm facing him. A cone of ice comes slowly out of her palm, with its sharp end aimed towards the mage's head. Everything that followed happened almost in an instant. She sends the cone of ice flying straight into the young mage's head, killing him instantly. The older mage's shock of seeing his son die in front of him provided enough of an opening for Darren to cut his head right off his shoulders. As the sword-throwing mage was still recovering from what he'd just seen happen, Kate took one of the many swords lying at her feet and quickly sent it flying back towards its owner, impaling him through the heart and killing him on the spot. It was a gruesome show, but at this point all I cared about was that I somehow managed to make it out of that alive. As he's healing his wounds, Darren looks straight at me. Damn it, Barry, that was too close. We're going to have to think up some strategy until our next fight, or we're not going to last much longer. Yes, I tell him, I think you may be right. After finishing his healing spell, he walks over to Kate. Kate, please explain something to me, because I just don't get it. With the way you were fighting back there, why would you ever ask for an escort? Everyone has their weaknesses, healer. Judging by how much you've been struggling this fight, I would assume ironically you are the weakest against other weapon enchanters such as yourself. But just because I handled these thugs with ease doesn't mean I won't have any problems against other foes. No one can survive this tournament alone. Yes, I suppose you're right. Darren pauses. Very well, let's keep going, he says as he heads towards towards the trees. I start to follow him, but Kate stops me in my tracks. She has that very serious look in her eyes again. "Stillwater," she says in a low voice, in order to avoid being heard by Darren. "I saw you fighting back there. You may have managed to convince Darren that that bearded fool that you are an ordinary human, but I am not so easily deceived. I don't know what your game is, but I'm going to keep my eye on you." "I'm not," I start to say, but Kate cuts me off and grabs me by the shirt. "You owe me, Stillwater. I saved your life during that battle, and you owe me. And I intend to collect that debt sooner rather than later. Are we clear?" "Don't worry, I always pay my debts. Yes, we're clear. I don't owe you anything." "I'm planning on making a smart, good berry run through. So unless anyone requests otherwise, I'm going to go with, don't worry," I tell her. I always pay my debts." The look in her eyes has lost a bit of its hostility. It seems that she's willing to take my word for it for the time being. "Very well then," she says as she releases my shirt. "Let's be off then." Very well," she says as she releases my shirt. "Let's be off. We need to catch up with Darren." Ancient languages check. Successful. Level 2. As we approach the forest, I see a female deer, and her fawn appears from behind the trees. When the fawn opens its mouth, I realize it speaks one of the ancient languages my stat device has taught me. "Mommy, there are more outlanders this way." "Don't worry, child," the fawn's mother tells him. "We'll find a safe way back to our cave, I promise." They head back towards the woods. "Wait," I call after them in their own language. The two deer stop and look towards me. "You can understand us?" asks the doe. "Offer to provide protection in exchange for leading us to their cave. Wish them safe travels." Game crashes. Give me one moment to get that back up. I apologize. Shoot, sorry. Thank you for letting me know, and thank you for the first time chat, Jimmy Dings. I don't know where I left off, so I'm just going to start at the top of this page. Man, I wish I could go back. How is your day or night or whatever it is, wherever you are going? So Barry, let me get this straight, Darren says. You're saying that trinket you're carrying around with you is in fact a device that amplifies your physical attributes, which is powered by the magic all around us. Right, I answer. And this device taught you an ancient language that made you able to communicate with the two deer. Correct? Darren and Kate are sitting in a circle on the rocky floor of our deer host's cave. Our trip here has been rather uneventful, save for a few more dead bodies than we've seen along the way. Darren has gotten out of his heavy armor since we arrived and is now wearing more comfortable clothes. Barry, there is no such thing as talking to animals. I've heard you talk to them, and there's nothing but weird animal noises. Just because you got lucky and they actually brought us to their lair doesn't prove you right. Kate, could you knock some sense into our dear companion here? No, Kate answers curtly. Because you won't be bothered to, because he's right. The device he's carrying is indeed a stat booster, and one of those stats gives the owner knowledge of the ancient languages. What? Weren't you the one saying I shouldn't trust him just a few hours ago? Why are you defending him now? I'm not defending anyone. I've known the true function of these devices for a long time. I don't need to trust him in order to know he's telling the truth. Fine, I give up. You win, Barry. So what are these stats of yours anyways? I show him my device's screen, where all of the 9 stats are shown. Darren gives the device a long pondering look until he decides to speak. Alright, here's my 2 copper pieces. I think that if we're going to keep traveling in our current formation, and if that device of yours really does what you say it does, then what would help us all the most would be if you maxed that observation stat. Observation? Why observation of all things? I ask him. Because if you're good at observing details, you're far more likely to detect illusions. Usually the best way to know you're in an illusion is to notice something minor that changed in the environment around you. No illusion is perfect. Sometimes there's a few leaves that disappear from the ground. Some other times the sun is higher in the sky than it was before you entered the illusion. I'm really bad at noticing these kinds of things. Usually I only see it when it's too late. This hasn't killed me yet, but then again, I've never had to fight against the strongest mages in the world before. Even if you max all of your physical attributes, I doubt that you'll ever be on par with me and Kate, let alone the other mages that joined this tournament. But with good observation skills, you might well end up saving our lives when we enter our first illusion. Darren pauses. Well, anyway, that's just my opinion. You can take it with a grain of salt. That little trinket of yours is yours to use, so feel free to do whatever you want with it. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important, says Ilaria as she approaches. I thought you might be hungry after such a long journey. She pushes a big plate of cooked meat towards us with her front hoof. Judging by the looks and smell, it appears to be deer meat. Ask her how she got the plate. Ask her if they are cannibals. Ask her, call out to see if Mullen is still alive. Mullen is her son, and they're both deer. How did you get that plate? I ask her. Surely you didn't carry it all the way from the nearest city. No, of course not. I conjured it the same way I conjured the food to see. No, of course not. I conjured it the same way I conjured the food you see before you. You can cast magic? As the two of us talk, I hear Darren whisper to Kate, I swear I'm never going to get used to hearing him talk like that. Ilaria pays him no mind and answers my question. Yes, many animals on this continent can. It is a gift offered to us by our protector, the great golden fox. Mullen's father used to be a lot better at it than I am, but I try my best. Ask about the golden fox. Ask her what happened to Mullen's father. Would either of you like to make a request on which direction I go? I can also do both because I'm going to save right here. And then I will go back right here. Alright, I think I'm going to ask about Mullen's father. He was killed a few years ago by some humans while he was defending us. He managed to hold them off long enough for us to escape, but he didn't make it. Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. It's no problem, you couldn't have known. Oblivious to the meaning of our conversation, Darren decides to stop waiting for me and start to eat. He offers Kate a morsel of the deer meat. Barry is busy talking to his animal friends. He'll join us when he's done. Eat up or your food will get cold. Shush, I'm trying to listen, Kate replies. You're kidding. You mean to tell me that you actually understand what they're saying? Only a little, which is why I need some silence in order to concentrate. So be quiet. Kate's words seem to have caught Ilaria's attention. There's no need to be embarrassed about your poor grasp of our language, woman outlander, the deer tells her. In the ancient language, I believe your name is Kate, is it not? Feel free to join our conversation if you want. I will try to use only words that are more commonly known in order to ease your understanding. Kate was caught off guard by Ilaria's proposal. She is struggling to form a coherent sentence in the deer's language. I did not know that you spoke common. I can understand it, but I am not allowed to speak it. The great fox has forbidden us to speak in the language. The great fox has forbidden us to speak in the human's language ever since the hunts of Olmnar began, a few decades ago. Humans and animals on this continent had been living in harmony for hundreds of years, but it all changed when the people of Olmnar started hunting animals as a sport some 40 years ago. This is when the great fox decided to sever all ties between the animal kingdom and the humans, and forbade us to speak in the common language ever again. So, not allowed speak us? Technically, I shouldn't be talking to humans in general, but the only rule set in stone is that I'm not allowed to speak in the common language. The great golden fox is a very old spirit that has guided all animals on the continent for thousands of years. She is our protector, our shepherd, and our teacher, and we all aspire to be like her. I respect the great fox and her decisions, but that does not mean I agree with all of them. I fear that the rift that has grown between our two races will only further amplify the conflict between us. Most humans have forgotten the art of food conjuration, and without us to help them, they have started turning to more primitive methods of acquiring food. What used to be only a sport practiced by Olnar has now become a means of survival for many humans. This war has already cost us so many lives, including Mullen's father, and I am getting more and more tired of it with each passing day. She pauses. But I digress. My friends, I thank you once more for your help. Our home is your home until you decide to take your leave. Please, eat to your heart's content and do not hesitate to ask for more. I will be over there if you need me. With these last words, Ilaria bows her head and goes to sit near her offspring, who is sleeping in a dark corner of the cave. Darren, who has been eating all this time, is now looking at us and shaking his head. Okay, he says. I only have one question for you. Did you ask her if she's got more of these? She pointed at the plate of food in front of him. She said we can ask for a refill whenever we want. I answer him. Perfect, then there's no need to hold back. After the three of us are done feasting, Darren decides to pick our initial conversation where we left off. All right, he says. Barry, I'm going to need you to decide now and tell us how you're planning to use your stat booster of yours in the immediate future so that we can prepare our tactics accordingly. We can't afford to go into our next fight without a plan. Focus on avoiding attacks and beating opponents. Focus on fighting the enemies head-on. Focus on observing the battlefield and providing tactical information. Since I'm trying to do a good, smart run-through, I'm going to focus on observing the battlefield. After taking some time to consider my options, I give Darren my answer. I want to focus on helping the two of you by observing the battlefield and providing tactical information. A wise decision. So I'm guessing your main two attributes will be hearing and observation then. But that's not enough. If the enemy sees you just standing there, they'll focus on you first, like they did this time. You need to have at least one defensive stat prepared, like toughness, reflexes, or premonition to be safe. Kate and I won't be able to defend you all the time. Darren shifts his gaze towards Kate. Now for the two of us. As you said after our last battle, I would rather not fight against the weapon enchanters unless I have no choice. That's why I'm going to ask you to take care of them when the time comes. Kate nods at Darren as he continues to talk. As for myself, I am particularly good against elementalists, summoners, and shapeshifters, so I'll focus on them if we meet any. He is speaking about mage specializations. Most mages will pick a certain type of magic and dedicate their life to perfecting it, instead of trying to learn as many spells as possible. Weapon enchanters use their magic to make their gear as strong as possible. Since they mostly rely on their weapons for combat, they will likely also train themselves in at least one martial art. Elementalists are mages born with incredible talent at manipulating one of the four elements: water, air, fire, or earth. However, they are born with the affinity for only one element, and they usually have problems mastering other spells, since they rely solely on their talent for casting their elemental spells, and generally have little knowledge of the arcane arts. Summoners are mages who concentrate on summoning other creatures to fight for them. Since that leaves them vulnerable to surprise attacks, they will usually also focus on defensive spells to keep them safe while their summoned creatures fight for them. Shapeshifters, on the other hand, go for a more personal approach, transforming themselves into other creatures instead of summoning them. This solves the vulnerability problem that summoners have, but it also limits their powers as they are unable to cast other spells while transformed. What about you, Kate? Darren asks. Do you have any weaknesses against any particular kinds of magic? Yes, she answers. But you don't plan on sharing them with us. I do not. Darren shrugs. Suit yourself. Well, I think that's all we needed to discuss for now. Time for bed. Barry and I will take first watch. Come on, Barry. I follow Darren out of the cave, and together we start climbing the mountain to reach a good vantage point. The moon is high in the sky and the stars are bright. We won't have any trouble spotting enemies if they approach. Achievement unlocked. A message in the sky. Observation check successful, level 1. Ancient languages check successful, level 2. I notice that the stars are not only unusually bright tonight, but there also seems to be a certain symmetry between them, almost as if they were forming symbols in the sky. I suddenly realize that the symbols are from an ancient language that my stat device has taught me. If I read all of the signs together, then the sentence could roughly be translated as, "The dragon knows where to find the source of all magic." Does that mean there's a dragon on this continent? And he knows the location of the Magium? I've heard about spells that brighten the stars in order to transmit information, but only in fairy tales. And the same goes for dragons. It must be a coincidence. I try to forget what I saw and focus on guarding the cave. As we stand guard, Darren starts telling me stories about his travels around the world and the adventures he's had. He tells me of the 50-foot giants that live in the far east of the northern continent. He tells me of how he's cured the dreaded Ignar plague of the eastern continent by himself, and how he defeated the green wyvern of the north. Listening to him tell me all these stories made me realize why I defended him instinctively from Cutthroat Dave yesterday. Even though I never really thought about it before, I guess I always kind of admired him. He's like all of those heroes from the fairy tales I used to read when I was a kid. He's a living example of what I've always aspired to become. I've been in a lot of places over the years, Barry, but everywhere I go, it's always the same. The weak are oppressed by the strong, and the few are killed by the many. Everywhere I go, there's people dying from starvation, plague, war, or some other monster invasion. I've seen death all my life, but I never get used to it. Seeing all of those dead bodies just lying there, lifeless yesterday, it made me feel an intense pain in my chest. It was as though I could feel the suffering of each of them, and the fear that went through their hearts as they took their last breath. What about you, Barry? What did you feel when you saw all those dead people? I was just busy thinking of how to stay alive at the time. I felt sorry for them, but I didn't let it affect me. I was almost about to puke. I'm gonna go with this one. I felt sorry for them, but I guess I came here prepared for the worst. I think I knew I'd be seeing a lot of death along the way, so I've decided to not let it affect me. Then you are stronger than I am, Barry. Darren pauses for a few seconds to gaze into the distance before he continues. You know, when I heard about this tournament, my first thought was that finally, after a lifetime of good deeds, after a lifetime of trying to make a difference, someone was sending me a sign. I've tried all of my life to save the world from its misery, but no matter how hard I tried, my efforts were never enough. But with the help of the Magium, maybe, just maybe, I might have a chance. Darren looks at me and notices I'm a little worried. I see no reason why the Magium can't be shared, Barry. Even if I win this tournament, I promise that I will use the power of the Magium to help you achieve your dream. I hope you will do the same for me if you win. His straightforwardness and his honesty took me by surprise. Of course I will, I tell him, since we both already know which one of us will be winning this tournament. Ha! That's the spirit. After yet another pause, Darren decides to change the subject. So, how's it going with Kate then? Are you making any progress with her? I'm not trying to seduce her, Darren. She still hasn't given in to my charms. Or she's eating out of the palm of my hands. I'm not trying to seduce her, Darren. Of course you're not. Of course you're not, Darren says in a sarcastic manner. Slowly, Darren's smile fades away from his face and he adopts a more serious tone. Listen, he says, I know your heart is in the right place, but you know as well as I do that women simply can't be born as mages. It's not in their blood. I don't know why she appears different from a normal banshee for you. I don't know why she appears different from a normal banshee to you, and I don't know why the banshee inside her hasn't awakened yet. But it's only a matter of time. One day she will turn into a banshee, and I want you to be prepared when that time comes. Darren takes a small device of his own out of his front pocket and hands it to me. It appears to be a magical transceiver. These devices are mostly used by soldiers when they need to transmit information to each other over short distances without having to shout to one another. I want you to carry this with you at all times. If you're ever in danger, just tap this 3 times and I'll come over to help as fast as I can. Just promise me something, I tell him. Of course. Promise me that you won't try to purify her until you see her transform into a banshee. Darren sighs. You're asking a lot of me, Barry. You should know better than anyone how hard it will be to stop her once she turns into a banshee. But if it means that much to you, then I promise. He pauses. Come on, we should get going. It's time to wake up Kate so she could take second watch. As we descend towards the cave, my stat device starts beeping. I pull it out of my pocket, and I see that I now have 6 more points available to spend. There must have been a big fight somewhere in the vicinity. It's chapter 3. I will save here. And I'm going to label it as book 1, chapter 2, points too. And just to be sure, I'm going to load it. Why did it disappear for you guys? Oh, gosh dang it. Why is this thing so glitchy? Okay, hang on. Alright. Now that it's been saved before I invest points, again, I have played this before, so I'm going to go with the ones that I know I'm going to need. But I don't remember all of them, so... I think it's that one. Alright, I'm gonna leave it there. And before I make decisions, I'm going to do that. We put the device back and enter the cave. We wake up Kate and she goes outside to guard the entrance as me and Darren go to sleep. I wake up to Kate's voice several hours later. She is whispering and making sure that Darren can't hear us. "Wake up, Stillwater," she says. "It's time for you to pay your debt." It takes me a few moments to realize she's referring to the discussion we had yesterday about her saving my life. "And just how exactly do you want me to pay this debt?" "All you have to do is come with me and take a look at something. It won't take you more than a minute. Do that and you can consider your debt paid." She's being serious. This must be more important to her than she lets on. "Why are you asking this of me and not Darren? He's the legendary mage around here." "Because unlike him, you appear to be very knowledgeable in the more obscure intricacies of magic. You don't see many people these days that know how a stat booster works. Plus, I have something I want to ask you in private, so come, before we wake up Darren." We exit the cave and head for the trees. The moon is still pretty high up in the sky. It can't have been more than 2 or 3 hours since I went to sleep. As we walk in awkward silence for a few minutes, I figure I may as well try to start a conversation. Ask her how come she knows how the stat device works. Ask her what she wanted to discuss with me in private. Well, considering she's going to bring up what she wants to discuss eventually, I'm gonna go with this one. "So how did you come to know the true function of the stat devices?" I ask Kate. She gives me a pondering look, probably still trying to decide how much of the truth she's willing to disclose to me. Did it glitch again? Why? Okay. I'm gonna have to figure out why this is so glitchy at some point. And how to fix it. The stat boosters were created on this continent. I was born here as well. It is more common for people on this continent to know what these devices do than it is for people on the rest of the world. Wait, you were born here? Didn't you come here as a participant in this tournament? I was born here, but I didn't spend my whole life here. It's not so easy to return here once you've left, however. I use this tournament as a means to come back because I have some unfinished business to attend to. I'm guessing this unfinished business of yours is somehow related to this thing you want me to look at. She doesn't make any comment, but her silence is enough to confirm my hypothesis. Kate decides to completely change the subject instead. She stops in front of me and looks me straight in the eye. There's been something that's been bugging me ever since we met yesterday. When you and Darren first saw me, you started whispering between yourselves for about a minute. You said you were trying to decide whether I was a banshee or not, and Darren said you had already established I wasn't one. She pauses a bit before she continues. The question is, why? I decided to seek Darren's help because I fooled myself into thinking someone as kind-hearted as him would not sentence me to death. But now that I've cleared my head and thought about it, I realized how much I've put myself at risk by showing myself to him. Why did Darren decide I wasn't a banshee when all the evidence pointed to the contrary? Kate still doesn't trust me. If I tell her I'm the one that convinced Darren to spare her life, she's either not going to believe me or she'll get suspicious of my motives and completely lose her trust in Darren. Maybe she'll believe me if I tell her Darren was the one who decided not to purify her. Darren said he'd met a banshee before. I lied to her. She said he could tell you were different somehow, and that he was going to keep an eye on you for the time being. I see, Kate says with relief in her voice. That's all I wanted to ask. Let's keep going then. Wait, why ask me all of this? Why not ask Darren directly? Because Darren is the one that knows white magic, not you. He is the one who would normally want to purify a banshee. I didn't want to give him any ideas in case the thought never occurred to him. And why would you believe that I'm telling the truth? Because you're not a very good liar. Your face gives you away. Is that so? Well, in that case, I also have a question for you. You may not be a banshee, but you can't be a mage either. Women can't be born as mages, so what are you? Who says I was born a mage? My mind goes blank for a second while trying to make sure I understood what she said correctly. Hold on, do you mean to tell me that you were born as a normal human and that you later became a mage? That is exactly what I'm saying. How? Did you get access to the Magium? How did you do it? I must know. I realized too late that I had let the excitement get the better of me. Kate is looking at me with an expression that shows both bewilderment and a sudden understanding. By the gods, she says, you were telling the truth, weren't you? You really are a human, and you came here in hopes of becoming a mage. Listen to me, I have no idea what could motivate you enough to go on this suicidal quest, but the only things that you'll find at the end of your journey will be agony and despair. Quit now, and you might still make it out of this alive. You speak to me of agony and despair, but you chose to become a mage. Surely you must understand how I feel about this. I do not, because becoming a mage was never my intention, and I have no intention of continuing this conversation either. I gave you a warning. You can choose to heed it, or you can ignore it. This is all I am willing to say on this subject. Before giving me a chance to respond, she storms ahead and I rush to follow her. We travel in complete silence for the next 10 minutes. As we get further and further away from the cave, I call out to her again. Wait, I tell her. What is it now? What is it now? We're getting too far away from the cave. What if anyone attacks Darren while he's asleep? Oh, you don't need to worry about him. Why not? Oh, are you suggesting that he can defend himself while asleep? Damn you! I'm not leaving my friend behind! Why not? See for yourself. Go on. Try and head back to our cave. Hesitantly, I start retracing my steps back towards the cave. Once I start walking, however, I get a powerful urge to go the other way. I try again, and I get the same result. No matter how many times I try, I simply can't keep going in the same direction. I keep turning in the opposite direction, sometimes without even noticing. Is this some sort of spell? In all of my research, I've never read of such a thing. What did you do? I asked Kate. I see. Apparently not even someone as learned as you would be familiar with this spell. It is understandable. They don't really use suggestion magic outside of Varathia. After all, the spell I use is a part of a subset of magic called suggestion. What these spells do is that they insert an idea inside of your head and they make you think that you were the one that came up with it. You may have noticed that something was wrong because you were specifically aiming to go in that direction, but most mages wandering around this area won't even notice the spell's effect. But how do I get around it? In order to counteract the spell, all you need to do is focus on the cave and visualize it clearly inside of your head when you head towards it. As long as you have a set destination inside your head and not simply a general direction, the spell won't work on you. My knowledge of this spell was one... I don't know when it disappeared. Once I finish this page, I'm probably going to call it. I'll take it as a sign. My throat and neck are starting to hurt, so... When you get the sign, it's time to stop. It's time to stop. Stop. I don't know why my mouse is doing this. In order to counteract the spell, all you need to do is focus on the cave and visualize it clearly inside of your head when you head towards it. As long as you have a set destination inside your head and not simply a general direction, the spell won't work on you. My knowledge of this spell is one of the only reasons I was able to survive against banshee hunters for so long. It covers a pretty large area, but unfortunately I can only cast it about 2 times a day, and it doesn't last for more than a few hours. Let's go. Our destination lies not much farther. After about 5 more minutes of walking, we finally come to a halt. The area we stopped in is full of fallen trees, similar to the one where we fought yesterday. Except this time there are no bodies. However, there's clearly been a big battle here, perhaps even the battle that charged up my stat device before going to sleep. I can still feel the traces of leftover magic resonating strongly in the air around me. This is where I wanted to bring you. Please tell me what you can tell by studying the magic in this place. As I concentrate on the nature of magic around me, I start sensing strong traces of elemental magic. It seems there's been at least one elementalist battling here, I tell her. Yes, but you can tell which element the caster was using. I try to focus even further. It's, I'm not sure how to describe it. It doesn't seem to be any of the 4 traditional elements. If I were to put it into words, I'd say it would be electric in nature. Kate's face slowly lights up when she hears my words. This is the first time I've seen her smile, even if only slightly, ever since we first met. Thank you still, Barry. You've really been a great help. Her reaction took me by surprise. Wow, this is the first time I've seen this side of you. I didn't know you could actually be nice. What's that supposed to mean? Oops. Shh. Okay. Since I'm wanting hearing, I'm going to put 2 points into hearing. Okay. And we will come back to it from there later. Alright, well, I don't know how many of you guys are awake, since I know a lot of people use my streams to fall asleep even when I'm playing, like, horror games. But for the people who are still here, I hope you enjoyed that. I started recording when I did the Magium, switched over to reading Magium. So I'm probably going to use it as a rerun. Oh, Misfit, you're still awake. What did you think? Did you enjoy that? Was this a good idea? Okay, I'm gonna stop recording now.